Hey everyone, we are Harlan and Naya. Welcome to episode 4 of our pop culture series, Riding the Wake. Today's show is the Ohana Mafia, and we'll be pushing K-dramas on you and talking paddling badasses. So, first off, spoiler alert, if you haven't yet seen Vincenzo, which is a Netflix show, you might want to watch a different episode because we're going to be talking all about Vincenzo and all about the wonderful things that happen on it. I don't know if we're going to get too deep into the spoilers. Vincenzo is such a complex and interesting show that I think that we can in no way do it full service in the 45 minutes that we've got today. So to kick it off, Naya, you just watched Vincenzo because I begged you to do so. Why don't you let us know what the basic concept is so that we can
Uh,
start talking.
all right, first of all, you picked a hell of a one for me to kick off the K-dramas for, man. I freaking love this one. It got my attention from the very first scene. All right, so I just want to say that you have not let me down yet so far.
Yeah.
So the basic
100% win record.
yes. He's batting 1,000, folks. Um, so the basic premise of the show is that you have a mafia consigliere. Hopefully I said that right.
Yeah, I
Please
think
don't
so.
kill me. So he is working for this family in Italy. He has a beef with the guy's son who was treating him like a son, goes to uh, Korea because he knows that there is gold that he placed with his mafia boss in this building, and now there are people in it, so he wants to get the gold so he can have it for himself. But in the in the show, he's trying to figure out a way to befriend these people who he really doesn't like at first. So he has to establish relationships, and then he finds out that there's this company called Babel who is now like a really big deal, and they start having beef with the people in the building. So now he has to feel like he has to protect them, and it just goes on, and it is great fun to watch the human condition and all the emotions that this man goes through, plus building these relationships. It's just, it's fucking phenomenal.
Yeah, this is a journey. This is a definite journey. It's part of so so for years I was like, why do these K-dramas keep coming up? Why do people keep talking about them? I have a lot of friends who are like, "Oh, K-dramas are the best." And I'm like, I don't know if I want to devote a lot of time to exploring all of the international television series. And admittedly, it was very difficult until recently to get into these K-dramas, right?
Yeah.
And so I started getting into them, I think around 2020.
Mhm.
And there's sort of a backstory to why I started doing it, but the the stories they tell are so much fuller and more interpersonally deep
Mhm.
than stories that we tell in Hollywood. That it's almost like a complete rethink of how television should work. I have a severely I have a huge respect for their their story structure and how they do things. And so like I'm super psyched that you appreciated this and are like down with it. So I wanted to talk maybe about just like what you thought was different about how it felt to watch this versus how it felt to watch a Western show.
Yeah, I can touch upon that. So right off the bat, I remember you telling me, watch Vincenzo, get Netflix, watch Vincenzo. It's a Korean drama, and I'm like, and I think my first reaction and my first text to you was, is it in English? Does it have subtitles? Because I have a very limited span, and you sent me a clip and it was all in Korean, and I was like, how am I supposed to understand what's going on?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and you said, no, just give it a chance, give it a chance. I was like, all right, I'll give it a chance. And I was literally blown away. Like I wanted to keep going, even though there was 20 episodes and each episode was about an hour to an hour and a half long. I was
Yeah.
hooked.
Those are long episodes.
Yeah. So I was like, I just got into it. And as you said, well, you preface this, I believe, in our first podcast about the relationships, or maybe we touched upon it on when we talked about Wheel of Time, the relationships, the on-screen time.
Yes.
You, they were there, so I understood why certain people got together and they had these little intricacies and wonderful moments. Um, so it was so different, and it was an easier transition for me to see that after watching like Stranger Things and Wheel of Time. Be like, okay, now I can see why this works and why I thought this way before.
Yeah.
Um, the thing that delivered for me was when he finally kissed the girl. Like when Vincenzo kissed that girl, I was like, oh my God. Like it was like a heart moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. They do this. The little hearts. Little.
Yeah. They dance around each other, and then they go, and it happens. And as a viewer, as a watcher, as somebody who watched the story unfold, it was the reward for watching those 3, 4, 5, 6 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think of this as earning a relationship, and it's something that the Korean writers and directors focus on so hard, and they do it more so in these drama series. Even all of the romances, right? Obviously, they work on this, but it even happens in the dramas where there's not really a heavy romance. So things like Squid Game, and some of these more like horror or thriller kind of things, they focus on interpersonal relationships a lot. And to earn these friendships or to earn these romances, they will have people constantly on screen together having interactions of
Mhm.
all different types, and they will do things where they push and pull, right? So they'll push them toward each other, they'll pull them away from each other, they'll push them toward each other, they'll pull them away from each other. Sometimes they won't be together on screen for most of an episode, but then they'll come back together toward the end, right? But the kind of common thread there is this push and pull, where they actually get to interact with each other, and they get on each other's nerves. They get to appreciate each other's strengths and weaknesses. They get to make commentary about each other and jokes about each other. Where when you watch a Western sort of plot line, a lot of times there's not very much actual time devoted between two people.
Mm.
When it does happen, it actually is good. It's actually magical, right? But
Yeah.
but there's a focus and a determined structure in Korean storytelling for specifically K-drama romances, right? Where they pay particular attention to this, and it ends up so that if those characters finally kiss in episode like 12, it's
Yeah.
almost always, you know, either episode 8, episode 12, or maybe they'll drag it all the way to episode 16. When you get that, it's like, oh,
it was I invested in that relationship and I felt my investment return right there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think they really sell the complexity of a relationship between two people who, particularly in Vincenzo, like nobody's perfect, right?
Oh
And I
no.
think
Yeah.
that's a common thread that runs throughout all romances, right? Nobody's perfect, right? But in Cave dramas, they particularly will hammer on this, and in Vincenzo, particularly, they hammer on the fact that he is no saint, but she's okay with it because right,
Yeah.
but you can understand her in a way that you couldn't understand if this was a 2-hour movie, right?
Yeah.
Because you go through this sort of hellish series of events that leads
Yes.
up to them getting together, where he supports her through that. And
Mhm.
even though he supports her in kind of horrible ways, she still is like, well, I'm okay with that. But
Yeah.
you understand why, right?
Yeah.
You understand the characters. And you just, like, it's earned. I
Yeah.
love that about it.
I I do too. And the fact that it is so I want to say it's a real unconditional respect and love between the both of them, and that's very rare to find in real life. You know, we always say, "Oh yeah, we love somebody unconditionally," but once they do something bad, we put a condition on them like, oh well, you went out and you drank and you danced with another girl, or you went out and you partied with your friends and met, had a drink with a guy, that there's conditions that we're like, oh no, we can't love you because of that. Those little things that just I don't know, it just they just do a wonderful job in solidifying that relationship. Um, I do love the comedy though. There is so much comedy with regards to the group that makes it okay for him to be doing the bad stuff.
Yeah, it's really dark without all that comedy.
It is. It is.
Like, one of the cool things that they'll have in their story structure, and by the way, I should mention some of this for folks who aren't familiar with the Korean story structure for these romantic dramas or romantic comedies. Typically, these are short, by Western standards, contained stories. So there is a beginning, middle, and end. There usually are 16 episodes. Sometimes there are 20. Very rarely they will get a full second season or like an extension where they'll go like longer. Like there's some where I've seen there are like 40 episodes, but maybe they're shorter episodes. Occasionally you'll see a very long one, but very rarely do they go over 16 episodes. So I would say like 80% of the ones that I've watched so far have been about 16 episodes. And so by the time you get to that 16 episodes, that 16th episode, they're wrapping up the threads. And so those threads typically are a relationship between the first male lead and the second, and the first, both of the first male leads. Sorry, it's not all gay. They're not all gay stories. Sorry, the first male lead and the first female lead. And then there's a relationship usually between someone else. It's usually the second female lead or the first male lead or the second female lead.
And the second male lead, yeah.
But those
Yeah.
two might not get together. They might be with other people. So it's not guaranteed that those things are going to happen. And then there's usually resolution of family conflicts for each of them, right? So because there's a huge focus on family in all of these things,
Mhm.
even if they have a heavy plot, there's usually a resolution of conflict between person and their father, person and their mother. Um,
Oh, you want to talk about family struggle? There is a whole lot in every one of these characters' lives,
Yeah,
especially in Babel.
yeah, especially in
Yeah,
Babel.
yeah,
And so there's, but then there's also these side characters, right? And very often that's where the comedy is anchored in these. So there's either these set pieces that they'll do where a lot of times there's some sort of conflict kind of crux that's happening, usually right around episode 7, 8, 9,
yeah.
right in the middle. Like in Vincenzo, there's a fantastic courtroom scene where they just like are having this fight with the Babel company and they're pulling all these dirty tricks in the courtroom. It's epic. It's the stuff that like when I went to law school, like I wish I could have done, just antics, I guess.
They they had killer bees, but yeah, the killer hornets. They had the killer hornets. They brought that in.
They brought killer hornets into the courtroom. Epic.
Loved it.
Like there's some stuff in there that is just like, oh, we did warn you there are going to be spoilers. So and then
Yeah.
in Vincenzo they have this whole side group of weird characters who live in this building, right? So there's some monks, there's a tailor, there's
A
people who
cook.
run a
Yeah.
music studio or a dance studio, actually one of each, and then
Yeah.
there's a Italian restaurant,
Italian.
Italian, and then there's
A pawn shop
a pawn shop, right?
with the couple. Yeah. And
And
then the law office where
and
they practice out.
and the law office, right? Where the first female lead, where she is associated. So she and her father owns the law office, and then
Something
and then
happens to him.
yeah, so things move from there, but like a lot of the comedy is these people kind of trying to fend off people who are trying to kick them out of the building, and then
Yeah.
Vincenzo is trying to get them out of the building, but he has no interest in like he doesn't care about it from a developmental standpoint. He just wants the building for like a month. That's all he would settle for a day, right? He just needs them out for a day.
And he tries that. He tries that. He sends them off to like the hot springs and then they come back and
Yeah.
it's like
And so, yeah, it's this comedy of errors in a way, but then it's also this comedy of sort of hidden selves because
yeah.
each of these folks has like hidden superpowers.
Yeah. It was just it if you haven't seen it, you gotta see it.
Highly, highly recommend it.
It's one of those things that you don't know you need it in your life until you actually see it and be like, that's what I was missing.
Yeah, yeah,
That's the key right there.
yeah. And
Oh my god.
it's funny how, um, you say that because back in, I guess 2016, I think is when it came out. Are you familiar with To All the Boys I've Loved Before? Or
I've heard about it.
that
Not seen
am I
not seen it.
am I botching? Anyway, so it's written by the story is from books, and the Korean American woman who wrote the books, I could tell later, was kind of trying to write in this sort of style, where it's like very family based, very Korean focused, sort of culturally, but also, I mean, it's set in Canada, I want to say. Anyway, it's all English speaking. Like there's a lot of white people in it, is what I'm trying to say. But there's this general feeling of contentment I get when I watch it. This sort of peacefulness, because in it everybody is fundamentally trying to do good things. They're fundamentally trying to do the right thing for each other, and it's very soft and caring, and And even the conflict kind of comes from people trying to do the right thing and trying to be good people. And I found that to be so immensely satisfying that I must have seen it like 50 to 100 times.
Oh yeah, this is going to
Love
be on
that
my
show.
this is going to be on my forever to come back to list. Be like, if I need to laugh enough, if I want suave Italian, you know, presence. I'm going to go this route.
Yeah, but when I discovered these K dramas, I'm like, they all give me the same feel, and so now I'm bouncing from one to the next to the next to the next because they all give me that feel of sort of like coming home to a place where there are people who actually genuinely care about each other,
Hmm.
and you get to take that ride with them. That's what I love about these shows so much.
So that is a perfect transition to how people who we paddle with on a team or in a boat situation or whatever become our family. You know, it's you can't really put a word on it except there's magic there, right?
Yeah, there really is. There's
Because we
there's
accept people for who they are in the boat and as people. We don't put labels on them. We're like, dude, if you're a paddler and you're a good person, let's do this, something like that, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's I don't remember where I heard this, but I remember someone talking about how maybe this was on a TV show or maybe this was just someone in my life who said that, yeah, I have a group of friends and I have no idea what they do for a living. All I know about them is that we talk about stuff at lunches and dinners and stuff like that. And that's what the paddling group is for me in a lot of cases. Like for the most part, I don't actually know what people do for a living or even what they necessarily are doing outside of paddling, but there's so much to talk to and so much to work on together inside of paddling
Mhm.
and so much fun to be had that there's that focus and that sort of like that egalitarian kind of world of balance within it where it sort of it allows you to have a alternative, not an alternative reality, but a different way of looking at people. I don't know how to explain it better than that. I'm reading a really interesting book right now about alternative political systems called The Dawn of Everything, and they're going back and it's an anthropology book, and they're basically going back and looking at the data that we're now getting on
Mhm.
early peoples, and they're basically saying things like, look, we have a lot of evidence now that shows that these early societies actually functioned in remarkably diverse ways. It's not
Mhm.
just a bunch of folks with chiefs and tribes wandering around and hunting and gathering. This is not how people have been organized for the last like 10,000 years. And so they're basically going through the evidence and going, well, we think, there were a variety of different structures.
Mhm.
And some organizational groups would be like in bands of 30 and they would go hunting or gathering or whatever, and then they would come back and they would be in a band of thousands. And then they would erect these big things. And they might have completely different social structures and completely different even sets of laws. The people who would be in charge would be different during these time periods. And so even within these groups, they would be flexible. And then going back earlier, there's like so little evidence. It's difficult to kind of tell other than we know lots of people were gathered in certain places. They might be doing certain amounts of trade. It's really difficult to tell, but there's so much diversity. And I feel like paddling is this sort of reflection of that alternative diversity of being in a different culture, a subculture perhaps, I hate that word because it makes it sound like we're like at a rave or something.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah. We're not at a rave.
it's not that. It's not that.
No.
It's a
I,
little bit
I, yeah, I can see that from my perspective. Paddling for me is where I get to clear my mind. It's peaceful. I love being on the water. In that family setting, and I call them my family because they do act like your family. You see them probably more than you see your regular family. You probably do. If we're being honest, I mean, my paddling season is going to be starting, and I'm going to be paddling 6 days a week. I'm going to be seeing the people that I paddle with more often than my biological family. But we always, in any family, there's fighting, there's disagreements, there's love, there's support, and I mean, it takes it to another level because when you meet another paddler, even if they're on another team or a different sport of paddling, you have that respect for each other. And and that's what I love. Like they don't see,
like different mafia families respect each
yeah,
other. They may
yeah.
fear, they may be angry, but there's a grudging
So good.
respect there, you
But
know?
yeah, it's like when I mean I've told you before when I was working out with somebody and they're like, oh, well, I paddle outrigger. I'm like, yeah, you're just an outrigger paddler. And then our our good friend, Red, said, okay, we need to stop that shit. We need to stop, saying, oh, you're an OC paddler, you're a dragon boat paddler, you're a surf ski paddler.
Yeah, we're
No,
not in
we,
gangs, guys.
we all freaking paddle. That's what we do.
We all
We're
paddle.
paddler. We're paddlers. So get
We
get rid of
communicate
that.
with the water to move forward.
Yeah, get rid of that mindset. So and so the head of the family spoke, and I listened. But I mean, yeah, and so I think it the team becomes your family from day one. Even if you don't know them, they will bring you in. If anybody is sick, if anybody is going through a hard time, if they've had a death in the family, if they've had a baby in the family, we all celebrate. And we are all there for those
We help, we
steps.
celebrate, we work together. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I love. So now let's transition to how much we love these people to who in your mind, Harlan, if you had like top five people or whatnot, who in your mind are the badasses? And then I'm not saying it in a bad way. Who are the badasses in the paddling community that you look up to and just get inspired by, I should say?
Yeah, so without naming names, I'm gonna talk about the qualities of these badasses that I appreciate. So I would say that one of them is actually a young paddler that we coach
Mhm.
and is somebody who, and she'll know what I'm talking about if she ever listens to this. She'll know who she is that I'm talking about her. She's the one who every time anyone's like, what do you want to do today? She says, sprints!
Oh,
I want to do sprints. And I'm like, yeah.
and I'm like, no,
Like,
no.
yeah, I want to do sprints too. The enthusiasm and the just raw, I want to go fast. I love that. And it's this sort of, and she's not the fastest, right? She just wants to go fast. She's like Sonic, right? You got to go faster. And there's an energy there that brings to the family, to the group, that I really, really appreciate. I'll let you list another one. I'll let you list one.
So I'm gonna name names.
Oh,
So
okay.
okay, I mean you can be
All
as
right.
vague as you want.
All right.
um, so ever since I started paddling and actually was training on OC1, I've always wanted to catch this person. And I was so close. I was so close to catching this person in the Ohana sprints that they did. Um, and it's Karen Jewell. I don't know what it is about her. I just love the fact that she's been paddling for years. She's a wonderful person. She shares her knowledge. But I'm always thinking, if I can beat Karen, then I've made it. You know, I I just, I don't, she was there when I started. She's showed me some stuff. You know, she keeps some of her secrets, you know, but if I can beat her, I think that like there are many people that I want to beat, and she's probably the top one on my list of badasses that just I just so respect her.
All right. All right. Cool. So
Name
let's
another one, kid.
another one. Another one. So so let's see. My seatmate sometimes. My seatmate sometimes he is awesome. I like he works super hard. So my seatmate on Dragon Boat a lot of times is Mike. I don't actually know Mike's last name.
Mike, there's three of them on
All
the.
right, yeah, it's cool. It's cool. So Mike works so hard. Like I will, and it's hard for him sometimes to be in the seat for a long time, but
Mhm.
like we will get out on the water and he will just tough it out. And like mad respect for this guy. He's bigger than I am, and
Okay.
he's much he like when we get out there there's this sort of there's this tendency to disfocus, I guess. So when you're in a dragon boat, you can kind of wander. You don't have to always paddle at your best. But one of the things that I take inspiration from Mike is that he tries to be so consistent. And whenever I'm paddling alongside him, I feel like I have to match his intensity. And he has a really just a really good reach and a really good flow to what he's doing. Pretty sure he's been paddling longer than me, but I don't know exactly how long. Uh, and and like when you're seatmate with somebody, you should you should be trying to learn from them. And so when I match up with Mike, because we're roughly the same height and weight,
Mhm.
we like I try to learn from him when we're on the boat. So like a huge shout out to him for kind of getting out there, even though it's rough for him sometimes. Like that that energy and that intensity again is something that I very much appreciate. So I guess for me, like the paddlers that I love to hang out with are the ones who get out on the water and they're like, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. I mean, my list, you know, obviously it started with Karen, but my list goes, you know, Zoe Chesney. Zoe is a badass.
She is amazing.
She trains so hard,
Yeah.
and Michael Chang, who helps her, is also a badass. You know, uh, I those two together, they could take over the paddling world as far as I'm concerned. Once they, get to the age where everybody's like, okay, bowing, I'm like, I'm done. I am,
And they're so young to be so
I'm,
accomplished already.
oh yeah. And I'm a little bit jealous, but it's a good jealousy. It's just like, I want somebody like that who enjoys paddling as much as I do to push me at that spot and be in that intimate athlete paddler relationship, I guess. Irina, I'm not going to even try to pronounce her last name. She's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Um, and then um, Mags Pedrick.
Yeah.
Ah, like these are phenomenal paddlers. If you've never seen them paddle, they just they have they have the it factor,
Yeah.
and they inspire people. Um, who else? Oh, the senior women on San
Oh
Diego
yeah,
Drag
right?
Anima. I mean, really, what more can you say? Like
Yeah.
they're they're just
Like
yeah. I can't. There's no words to put
when they get in a
how.
boat together and you're like, wow. Like I hope I'll be there too, someday.
Yeah,
Riding
yeah,
that senior boat down the raceway.
yeah. Then you've got Steve Jewell, who's also awesome, and Red. I mean, we have been blessed, Harlan. I think
Yeah, we really have a great crew.
we have been so blessed to paddle with some phenomenal people.
Yeah.
You know, so I and the kids, man, and I know who you're talking about. Little sprinty girl there, man.
Sprinty girl. I mean, all
Sprint.
the kids inspire me in different ways.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's a wonderful thing to be able to go and participate in the development and then get out and like see so many different groups of people trying to develop their paddling powers, right? So you got folks as young as like 8 and 9 and folks as old as like in their 60s and maybe even 70s. I don't know. I'm not going to ask. But but I think it's fantastic that this community can span so many years and people can have so much fun with it.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, so I guess with that, I think we should wrap it up unless you
I
have someone else you want to focus on.
No, I mean, I think everybody in their own right at some point is a badass in the paddling community to somebody else, you know?
Yeah, and remember that when you're out there, folks. Remember that when you're out there.
Yeah. You may not be the fastest, but if you've got great technique, that's awesome. If you like to sprint and you're the slowest and you want to get up, that's great too. Like you inspire the next generation or even people of your same age or older than you. You never know. You
It's like
never know.
it's like being a parent. Like you don't necessarily always have to know what the right thing is to do, but the important thing is to be there.
Oh,
Be there for your family.
there's no book on parenting.
I hear there are some books on parenting actually. I I don't. They didn't issue one to me, but I hear you can buy them.
Oh, it's not the day that you were born here. Your parents get a book, and this
No,
is
no,
how you're
no.
supposed.
Apparently
Oh,
not.
darn
Apparently
it!
not.
I think that's a good place to wrap up.
Yeah.
We got some info though for some people, right?
Yeah, we're gonna share. So that was today's show, everyone. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to us on YouTube. And in the comments, tell us all about your paddling Ohana. You can email us now. We have an email at writing the wake two,
The number
two,
two.
the, at writing the wake, the number two at gmail.com. Or you can follow us on Instagram at writing the wake, one word. Not one word, but writing the wake, all one word. You know what we're saying, no spaces, all that. Okay, cool. Tune in next week for episode 5 where we'll talk Netflix fantasy shows. And until next time, embrace the huli, and we'll see you on the land or in the water. Peace.